This is Redline Revs, welcome back. This is a 1.9 TDI in a Seat Leon. It's exactly the same engines in a Mk4 Golf or other VW group cars, Skodas, Audis and all that. This is a 150 PD ARL. I'm going to be doing an oil and oil filter change. First thing that we need is a 19mm spanner to get the sump plug off. So what you want to do is jack the car up. If you're using jacks, make sure you have axle stands or use a ramp like I'm using, and get on the car, make sure you're safe, and get your 19mm spanner on the sump. I'm just going to take you underneath the car with me, and this is your sump, and that there is the sump plug right here, and that's a 19mm spanner. You need to open that. When you open that, make sure you take off the end with your hands when it's got the last bit of thread, and have your oil catch pan ready, like I have right down here, to catch all the oil that comes out. Okay, that's the sump plug. I've got my 19mm spanner. Just crack the tension on it and get it loose. Once it's loose enough for you to work with your hands, just go for it with your hands. Be careful to catch the plug and have your catch pan ready. There is a washer in there as well, which you do need to reuse. Okay, here it comes. It's always difficult to know when the thread stops. I'm getting close, and it should be any moment now. I've got the sump plug here, and I'm just going to put that safe to the side. I'm going to be reusing these. A lot of people talk about getting new ones every time you change your oil. If you're careful with them, there's no reason to change them. So just have your oil dripping out into your catch pan, and be prepared to move the position of the pan to make sure you catch all the oil. Okay, so this is the old oil filter. That's the oil filter cap, and to remove that, what I'm going to use is one of these, which is an oil filter removal key, and on top of that I'm using a chain wrench as well over here. A lot of people struggle with these. It's really not that difficult once you get the hang of it. Put it around, get this bit as low down as you can, and just slot the chain into there, and then you should be able to use it like I am here. Very easy to just turn that open, and with a few turns you should find that the rest of it will just come off by hand relatively easily. I just want to make sure that it does. There you go. Yeah. That should be good for me to now take off by hand. And once that's out, what we have here is the old oil filter. It's going to make a bit of a mess, but I'm going to show you guys. There it is. And it's best to take this out after you've opened the sump plug. It does help to drain everything a little bit, and it is going to be a little bit messy. So that's the old oil filter. You can just pull this out, and I'm going to do that in a minute. Okay, so we're just going to take out the old oil filter, which is pretty easy. Just pull out like so, and this gets thrown away carefully. It's going to be dripping with oil. Okay, so VW recommend 5W30 fully synthetic for the PD engines, the 1.9 TDIs. That's the best oil to use. There are some people who say if you have a high mileage car or a worn engine to use slightly thicker oil, but the PDs are quite sensitive and they do love this oil. The oil filter I'm using is from Halfords. It's the HOF 294. That's the HOF 294. That's the size for the, actually I think it's for all Mark 1 Leons, but make sure you check all that out. Prime the new oil filter, and first just take your oil filter holder. There are two O-rings you need to remove. One of them is over here, which I've taken off. The other one is over here. So just remove those two old O-rings. and your new oil filter should have come with the new pack. That's to chuck away, and you see I've got new ones in my new pack, so I'm just going to put those on. So along the bottom we have the larger one. Obviously, sorry to patronize you guys. Just get that down into the groove where it's supposed to be, which is all the way down. There you go. And before you put it back on, you want to make sure that you put some fresh oil over that stuff. Put some oil over it. And then you've got the much smaller one, which goes over here, and is even more tricky or fiddly when your hands are covered in oil. This one's always a bit fiddly when your hands are covered in oil. That's where it goes. What I'm going to do is just take some oil, rub that over the filter, over the O-rings. Then we can take our new filter. It's marked top where the top is, and you just push that in. And there you have it. And now, just want to take some oil to that. Okay, your new filter is ready to go back in. Let's come up here. Okay, we have the new filter primed, and I'm just going to place that in the oil filter housing and turn to the right to tighten it. In most cases you will be able to tighten this with your hand. I've currently got oil on my hands, so it's just a little bit trickier. I'm going to use my thing over here, gives me more grip. Well, you should be able to tighten it with your hands. You don't want to make it too tight, but I've got oil all over me and I'm too excited. I can't break to clean my hands, so I just want to carry on with this like this. There we go. Now your oil filter is back. And when your oil filter is back on securely, you want to make sure that the sump plug is back. Okay, so that's the used oil. You want to dispose of that carefully, pour it back into the plastic oil bottle that you've got once you finish pouring the new oil in. Make sure you've checked it if there's any metal shavings or anything, so you know there aren't any problems in the internal of your engine. And you just want to get that sump plug nice and clean, and you can put it back. You don't need to use a new one every time. Once you put the new oil filter in, just come and wipe the sump with a piece of tissue just to get it nice and dry. Make sure no oil's left there. Make sure you've cleaned your sump plug too if you're using the same one, and start off always with your hands. Make sure the washer's on there too. Start that with your hands. Get it in as far as you can with your hands before you go for your wrench or socket or spanner, which is what I'm using. Once you've got that on by hand, you take your spanner, tighten it up. You don't want to make it too tight, but you want to ensure that it's not going to come off and cause you any problems as you're driving about. So have that nice and secure. squeeze as tight as you can get it by hand, should do. That's your sump plug back on. That's a dirty sump. And now we're ready to pour in the oil. So we've done the oil filter, we've closed the sump plug, and now we can just open the oil filler cap. Place that to the side. And now I'm using a funnel. This car takes 4.5 litres of oil to get to max. If you're using a 4-litre bottle, just put all of it in and then make sure that you've got some spare just in case you're ever running low to top up after a few thousand miles. Yeah, so 4.5 litres to max. Make sure you never put any more in than it takes. That's it, YouTube. That's how you do your oil change. Now we're just going to take the car off the ramps, check the dipstick, make sure the oil level is okay, and then we're good to go. Okay, now we've taken the car off the ramps. Once you've allowed the engine to stay on for a few minutes and let that oil circulate, we can then check the oil level and make sure it's all good. So just pull out the dipstick. First time you won't get an accurate reading, you need to wipe that. Make sure it's wiped nice and clean. Okay, there you can see it's clean. Put that in. And yep, the oil level is pretty much perfect there. Don't need any more. That's perfectly fine. So that's how you do it. That's how you change the oil and oil filter on a 1.9 TDI. There can be a lot of debate over how long you should leave it between oil changes. Some people are on the long service plan of 10,000 miles. I would highly recommend that you aim to change your oil every 5,000 miles, and by 6,000 miles have it changed. That's the best way that you can ensure you keep your engine healthy and give it a nice long life. And that's how I do it myself. I change every 5,000 miles. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, make sure you join the movement, comment, rate, subscribe. This is Redline Revs. I want you to be a part of this, and make sure you click subscribe right now.